Everyone was stunned to find that the iconic figure from Love and Hip Hop, Yandy Smith, had been in a horrific car accident and was currently recovering. Given Yandy's poor health, physicians believe her chances of survival are slim. After the disaster, her family and closest friends were also in a panic. The news stunned the man who had promised to be at her side, no matter what, but he was seen crying as he rushed to the hospital right away. The next few hours saw the availability of information. Could this have been a terrible accident or something else? Were dark secrets and fierce rivalries the cause of this unexpected result? As the drama surrounding Yandy's tragedy develops, her followers are in shock, with her family in chaos. Keep checking back because things are about to change when we reveal the shocking truth about Yandy Smith's case. There was horrifying content on social media that was today unthinkable, which was unbelievable. In an accident on the Beaufort Highway, Yandy was said to have suffered significant injuries. Nevertheless, as more information became available, the horrifying reality emerged. Yandy, the daring and courageous hip-hop and love queen, was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life. Supporters throughout the world were shocked by this unthinkable tragedy. Things were clearly serious and appeared to be getting worse by the hour. It was in the midst of working hours. Yandy was found unconscious, with several fractures and severe brain damage, when rescue investigators arrived. The whole nature of her injuries was disclosed by the medics, but it was too late. Mez, her husband, got a phone call that no spouse ever wants to receive. Her automobile drove off the road and struck a concrete barrier while she was driving at a dangerously high speed, according to witnesses. The dreadful screech of tires and the clang of metal on cement came next. That might have allowed him to prepare for the trip. His thoughts pounding, he rushed immediately to the hospital, fearing the worst. In addition to the fact that her health was in danger, their relationship had suffered as a result of months of unresolved dispute and tension. Given his personal problems with his history and his position in Yandy culture, Mendeecees was in a dilemma worse than any reality program drama he had ever seen. The cold temperature made things worse when he first arrived at the hospital. He thought about how they had come to this point, his heart thumping. Was there some evil force at work, or was it fate? Did anyone want to see I go through this in their own home? The medics were under a lot of stress since they were working nonstop to stabilize her. He didn't know what to expect. Yandy's face battered and bloated, her body strapped to machinery. Through thick and thin, he had supported Yandy and helped her grow her business, but now he was at risk of losing everything. She made her presence known right away because Yandy's mother was a powerful woman with strong beliefs of her own. But instead of providing solace, she made the already mounting stress worse. She immediately began to point the finger at Mendeecees, accusing him of abandoning Yandy when she most needed him and casting doubt on his involvement in her life. Clearly, she didn't like Mendeecees. Her close friends did not immediately jump to her aid, but long-standing family problems began to show. Are you fighting for her life and grieving as if it were your fault? Then she heard the charges puncture the air like daggers or sharp blades, and she heard her mother's voice become harsh and despised. Yandy's mother and her brother, Devin, were already at odds, and his lack of support made matters worse. Devin gave him a fierce look from across the room, saying, "Don't think you're going to play the victim here. She's been putting up with your stupidity for years, and now this happens." The revelation upset Yandy Smith's social media fans. However, as is sometimes the case in the world of celebrities, conspiracy theories were rampant, with some claiming that Yandy's death was not an accident, but rather the result of foul behavior. With the allegations and suspicion, the guy could scarcely be with his wife, hold her hand, and reassure her that everything would be all right. He felt trapped and unable to stop the judgment that was being slung at him from all sides. What makes Yandy do that? Why would Yandy risk her life in such a manner? We could have underestimated Mendeecees' loyalty as a husband. Was Yandy treated rudely by him? According to the scandalous hypothesis that circulated, Yandy had been intentionally speeding in order to avoid someone or something. The rumors were getting more ridiculous by the day. MC's thumb vibrating with a message that would alter everything as he sat at Yandy's bedside, in a shocking turn of events left fans wondering whether to cheer for their beloved celebrity or speculate about the possible relationship problems that led to this disaster. Their unsolved concerns were the source of the fans' comments, which further fueled the fires and added depth and gloom to the already terrible scenario. Upon reading the note, which said that the sender was aware of the crash's circumstances and that a third party harbored personal animosity toward Yandy, Mendeecees' blood froze. It made him wonder if Yandy had been singled out for intentional harm because he couldn't comprehend why someone would want to do that to her. Yandy's family, already divided by long-standing tensions, was being further weakened by the scene in the waiting room. It was a harder collision, but nobody wanted to acknowledge that. Mez was struggling to maintain his composure in the meantime due to the message he had just received. Sitting there in the sterile hospital room, the gravity of the situation struck him more strongly than before. What if someone's true aim had been directed toward Andy? When Devin, Yandy's brother, took charge of the matter and demanded that they decide on Yandy's care without first consulting Mace's, it was the final straw. For what reason are we waiting for him to decide? We now find ourselves in a situation where Yandy is fighting for her life, illustrating his futility in her life. She needed him the most, but he disregarded her. You think you can just enter here like the hero, even if you can see she's about to die? As always, Yandy's mother, who had never trusted me, was not afraid to express her disapproval of the situation, and this particular instance provided her all the ammunition she needed to do so. She snarled as she stared at M's stress, which glistened in the air like static electricity, and M was constantly reprimanded for everything he said. Ignoring the others, his best friend Yandy hurried toward M with a pale face and wide, terrified eyes as he reached the waiting area. "I know what's going on," Tasha said in a tremulous tone, and men gathered to hear. He was in a state of shock, unsure of how to react, his heart broken by the charges. His loneliness was even more startling when he required his family's help. When he inquired in a strained voice, "What are you talking about?" Tasha looked around the room anxiously, but nobody was listening. She continued, "I know who did this." Echoing like a detonating explosion is no accident, because Mez Yandy was the target. He gripped her arm as the realization shook him to his core. While Yandy's mother, now even more enraged than before, turned to M's voice, Tasha and Means spoke to each other, and the rest of the family carried on with their emotional outing. He clenched his teeth and continued, "I need answers. I have to find out who did this." He was well acquainted with her and had experienced many things together, but he could not deny that she had developed adversaries over the years. Mice said angrily, "I don't need you here," in response. He was so passionate that the family members stopped to consider what he had said. Dripping with venom, "Don't think you can just walk in here and act like you're going to save her." She spat, giving him the ferocious glare that had been her strength after years of neglect. "You've let her down time and time again, and now you think you're going to be the one to get her through this. I am the only person here with her, and if she wakes up, I will be the first to be there. Even though DC couldn't stop Tasha's message, it made him question whether Yandy's family members truly wanted to see her harmed and who could have come up with such a brilliant yet bad scheme. The family was more divided than ever. The walls were closing in on him, and the strain was mounting. The person Yandy loved was now inextricably separated from him by his mother, who had always disapproved of him. By the time the family turmoil reached New York, however, he was still looking for answers. Yandy had to battle fierce rivalry, treachery, and jealousy to get to where she is now. She had made enemies, some of whom were quite dangerous, but would have gone so far as to intentionally harm her. Her rise to prominence had not been without its difficulties. As time dwindled, Mies became increasingly aware that he needed to learn more if Yandy was to have any hope of surviving. "Do you really think you can solve all of this, miss?" Leaning in, she spoke. "You feel that you know what's best for her and that you are an authority on her?" Minnie's mind was full of questions when Yandy's mother said in a whisper, "Well, I have a secret of my own, miss. One that you won't believe. There are a lot of things about Yandy that you don't know, including the things that she has concealed from everyone," she said, her voice barely audible above a whisper. "Tell me what you mean," he screamed, his voice wavering in a desperate yet angry manner. His mother-in-law's words, "What are you talking about?" startled him and broke his belief that he and Yandy were inseparable and that they shared everything. Yandy's mother was never one to give up in a confrontation. His thoughts were, "You think her life has been all rainbows and butterflies, that she hasn't made mistakes?" Because he always knew about Yandy's troubled past, he never imagined it would come back to punish her so severely. Was the car accident really an accident, or was it a planned act of retaliation by someone from her past who would harm her in this way? "Yandy has a dark past that would disprove everything you believe you know about her, and someone is using that history against her," replied I. "Who is it now?" He couldn't give up in the face of the heartbreaking fact. His question was barely audible as he rose up in desperation, feeling the walls closing in on him. With a heavy sigh, Yandy's mother said, "Even though you think you can handle it, the truth is that someone close to us, someone from Yandy's background, has been planning an attack on her for years. They knew exactly how to do it, and they've succeeded now." Yandy's mother articulated her struggle between trying to keep her daughter safe and confronting her about the unpleasant reality. "It's Tasha," Yandy's mother finally stated, and even though her voice faltered due to the gravity of her words, she made sure no one else could hear. The name was an insult to his wife's best friend and the person he had trusted the most. Did she have the one? The shock was so severe that he was momentarily struck speechless, and everything around him appeared to collapse. "That's impossible," he said with a shake of his head, convinced that Tasha would never do that. When Tasha had always been there for them in good times and bad, how could she be blamed for this? As everything came together, he realized that something was off. "She's someone I know well. I've seen her look at Yandy. She has been totally lost for years, as the jealousy and anger have been simmering beneath the surface, waiting for the proper moment." When he finally made it to Dandy's room, he discovered her comatose and pale, with her body connected to gadgets that beeped punctually. The betrayal was too much to bear. With his head racing with anger and his heart pounding in his chest, he thought that Tasha was the cause of Yandy's predicament as he strode down the corridor. He knew he needed answers, and that confronting Tasha was the only way to really get to the bottom of it. So he marched out of the waiting room. Before turning and making his way straight to Tasha's apartment, he took a long breath to ready himself for the confrontation. He was uncertain if she would truly confess to the betrayal or continue to play the victim when he knocked on the door. He was momentarily caught between wanting to shield her from the world that had been hurting her all the time and being upset that someone in their inner circle had been plotting an attack on her the entire time. As Tasha opened the door, she was taken aback by the unaccustomed intensity of his stare. "You want what?" she asked in an attempt to conceal her discomfort. "You must tell the truth to me." The voice Mendy used was steady and quiet. "Did you have anything to do with Yandy's mishap?" Tasha spoke, hardly raising her voice above a whisper, and her expression wavered briefly between fear, sorrow, emotion, and something deeper that I couldn't quite identify. When she spoke the words that hung in the air like a curse, the weight of her emotions actually caused her to stay still. Mendy felt like they were kicked in the gut by the information. "Why would you do this to me? I never wanted it to go this far," Tasha said, turning away with tears in her eyes. "It was unbearable to watch Mandy with everything I could ever want, and I felt angry and bitter. I never thought it would happen, but if I could defeat her even a little bit, I felt like I could regain control of my life." Despite his inability to prevent the world from falling apart around him, men in Washington, D.C. realized that the truth had come at a high cost and that things would never be the same again. Yandy's life was in tatters after the one she trusted most betrayed her, and she turned to confront Tasha to realize that the harm had already been done. That thing is certain: their lives will never be the same, even if DC survives. This terrible and devastating story's conclusion makes it very evident that betrayal may happen under the most improbable of situations. There are still many unknowns ahead, and Yandy has a long way to go. Is it possible for her to get past this unimaginable pain? Or will the secrets of her past destroy everything she has worked so hard to accomplish? Yandy's and her own lives have been changed by Tasha's actions, and Dee must cope with the ultimate betrayal from a person he trusted. The family is split up among men. We have only just begun the next chapter in the Yandy story. To follow more fascinating developments in this developing story, return frequently. Despite beginning with a shocking betrayal, the tragic collision, and the family rift, this drama is far from done, as Yandy's life is in danger and the truth about Tasha's malicious plans becomes apparent. Will she be held accountable for what she did? Do you believe that Tasha's actions were primarily driven by jealousy? Or is there more to her narrative than meets the eye? Leave a comment below with your thoughts on Tasha's behavior. In order to ensure that you don't miss any more updates on this amazing tale, please hit the bell button if you share our amazement. We welcome your feedback at any time. Escalades. Was Tasha's choice motivated by envy or by something else? What impact, in your opinion, will Yandy's marriage to M have as she makes it through this ordeal? If you want drama, we'll keep you informed and make sure you don't miss the next video.